beginning is a pretty soft beginning because the first thing we're going to do is actually have you stand up and talk to each other. So find somebody, ideally it's someone you've never met before or someone you don't know well, and take a few minutes to learn about them. Find out their name, where they're from, what field or industry they work in. Why are they here at this forum? Why are they here at this workshop? And if you have time, bonus points if you can find out something fun or unexpected about them. So this is an exercise in getting to know each other, but it's also an exercise in active listening because afterwards you're going to introduce your partner to the rest of the room. So you'll have about 5 minutes for this, so please have, not have a seat. If you could just have a seat now next to the person that you've been chatting with. And we're going to go around, and as previewed, you will have a chance to introduce your partner. So we're all going to get a sense of who's in the room. Thank you for that. A little more volume is helpful, I suppose. Though I'm going to move into the circle now myself. So speak up so that people who hear you aren't going to mic you. So the exercise here is to introduce the person you were talking to, not introduce yourself. But do it relatively briefly because we are a sizable crowd and we do want to move on to other things. So Gloria, who are you introducing?
Well, because there's so many John Abbott individuals here, I was alone, so I tagged on with Francine. But we have the honor of meeting Melanie.
Where's Melanie?
I'm
renewing
she's
my parking.
okay, I don't want to get parking, which is a good thing for the student, they have no money. So let me tell you about Melanie's in her 3rd year of the police technology program. She is the class representative or president.
And president of the Students Association.
Right.
Of the police program.
So Paul asked her because he felt that she would be a good student that would represent the program very well. She's into CrossFit, so she explained to us what CrossFit, it sounds very painful. So, which is not shocking because many of the students in police tech are very active and physical. And what's something fun about
Well, actually, her future goals is actually to be on the streets, as she says, which means to let people like ourselves actually be in patrol cars and actually be responding to calls and being very, very flexible in a very diverse situations. So she wishes to go to the police academy and continue her career and go from there.
We feel that she's very well spoken and will represent the college very well. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that was great, and we learned a lot about Melanie, and we're going to have to be a little bit shorter. I don't want to spend the whole time just learning about each other. So Melanie, do you want to say a few words about Gloria and Francine?
Yeah, very, very nice individuals. I did talk a lot about myself, but what I did learn, I have here Gloria, and she's from the nursing. She's the chairman. And over here, I have Francine from the dental. She wanted to go into dental because, well, she likes teeth. And I learned something interesting from Gloria. She loves dogs, but I love dogs too, so that's always fun. And over here, Francine likes to floss. I mean, it makes sense. That's always a good thing. And the main purpose as to why they're here is to make connections for stage opportunity and employment.
Well done.
Great. Also, great to applaud, but let's hold the applause. So, yeah.
I'd like to introduce Ryan right here, graduate of political science. Ryan will be doing something very important for us today. He's the one taking notes for everything that's happening in here. Originally, as a volunteer, then he discovered there was a paycheck attached to this. So volunteer work that pays isn't that fantastic. While chatting with Ryan here, I realized that he was a much better interviewer than I was. So he knows more about me now that I know about him. So I'll just pass the book to him now. Was that okay?
Good. So yeah, I was speaking to Martin. He's training people how to become paramedics at John Abbott College. One thing that I found very interesting about that is that he mentioned how all of his graduates are very high in demand because they're all bilingual. They can speak English and French, whereas people who can only speak French may find it more difficult to find a job as a paramedic. He also likes to floss.
That's right. Did you really say Nabil?
I would like to introduce you Anna Osborne. She is a coordinator of programs at the Commission Scolaire of Littoral. She is a coordinator there of many programs, including continuing education for adults, as an example. She likes the dogs. She has dogs. But it was a very fun exercise because we are working on the same project, but we don't know. And actually, I'm involved in our continuing education department at Jaramillo College to build a program in AEC, Attestation d'études collégiales, for Coasters Association. They are located in Basse-Côte-Nord, and she is involved in that project, but from her side. So this is a funny thing.
I'm never meeting it.
Yes.
And this is Nabil, who's from Abbott College in the Biopharma program. So this was a very happy meeting. He loves applied research, which I also enjoy. And like Nabil said, the fun thing that we found out was our future project or current project that we'll be working on together.
Amazing. Thank you.
Okay, this is Sébastien. He's from Jonquière. He works for the Minister of Education. He is also looking for methods of retention of young Anglophones, so we're going to get along very well. And he is responsible for the Young Anglophone networking, as well as looking for links to programs that would be advantageous for his ministry. And his personal, I guess you could say, specialty or little things that he's an unexpected person. He'll tell you all about it after.
Hi, this is Paul from John Abbott College. So he's the director of Technique Policière. He's here to share some methods of retention or some idea about retention of a young Anglophone who study in Technique Policière. And then he's a huge lover of gardening. Yeah, he loves gardening. So this is the unexpected side of this person. Oh yeah, he's a former police officer.
And if you weren't partnered with someone, you could also just introduce yourself.
Okay, hello, I'm Anna. I'm currently finishing a master's in educational technology at Poirier University. Hopefully in the next few weeks. I'm also fingers crossed. I'm also working. I'm part of the organising committee for the forum as well, which I was actually introduced to from one of the board members because I've done a similar thing. I'm working on technology, so sorry for any messages you've been getting about the app and stuff like that. Some of that's been out of control, but thank you for people who have downloaded it. And I'm very interested in the part that technology can play in education for better and worse as well, to see in all fields how it can amplify, but also what we need to do to make sure that we minimize the amount of potential negative effects or unknown effects, risk analysis, that kind of stuff. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce you to Louise Langlois. She is here from the Ministry of Education, English Services. She works over on Fulham Street. She lives in Saint Laurent, and she's here to learn about the community and the programs at John Abbott. And the fun fact is she's going to a fitness class tonight after sitting still all day. Yes.
So let me introduce you with Joanne Ross. She's a manager at the Dean. I struggle understanding this structure.
Program Dean's office.
Program Dean's office.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So she's here this afternoon to help her colleagues from John Abbott, but yesterday she made a presentation about some survey or assessment around this idea of unfortunately, our young Anglophones may lack some confidence speaking French, just as I do in English, but I'm trying. So, and the good thing is that she's a horse rider. Can you say that?
Yeah, horseback rider. Equestrian.
Equestrian. That was impressive. Mrs. Ross, thank you.
I'm introducing Jennifer. She's from Quebec City. She works for the Ministry of Education in the finance department that gives financial resources to Cegep and university students. And her fun fact is, she doesn't speak a word of English, and she's at an English conference.
Hi, but I can understand, but speaking is something else. I'm from Quebec City. And I introduce you Barbara. She's at John Abbott College. She's replacing someone today. but she didn't want to tell me what she's doing because she will tell you and us at the same time, and she loves cooking.
Hello, I'm introducing Michael. Michael has been the chairman of the Quebec English School Board Association for the last Eastern Townships. Sorry about that. And so his school board is a mix of regional and urban schools, so this makes for an interesting mix. He also is here to learn about special projects, opportunities for funding, or other opportunities for collaborations. And since I talked too much about myself, I could not learn an expected and fun fact about Michael Jaramillo.
And I'm here to introduce Emily Martel, who works for the Provost Office at Concordia, and whose special assignment is to develop collaborations between John Abbott technical programs and Concordia with an objective of encouraging graduates of the technology programs to continue their education at the university level. And there's a lot of detail that goes with that, but we discussed the challenges mostly of funding of projects and the importance of having resources to do these projects.
Hi, I'm introducing myself because I was late, so I apologize. My name is Ella Go. I'm with Learn. I think an interesting fact maybe for people at John Abbott is for the second year we'll be taking on an intern from the Computer Sciences Department. It's been a really wonderful experience for us, so I'm looking forward to learning more about John Abbott and the various programs that they offer.
I'm introducing Laura Ricotta, who is at John Abbott College, and she is she started the business alternance, work placements, or working in a co-op program. And an interesting fact and she's here to present it today. And an interesting fact about her is that she lived in Italy until she was 5.
So I'm going to introduce Sharon, who's from Cegep Sept-Îles. And what's interesting, very interesting about her Cegep is that it's a francophone Cegep, but there's an anglophone section, which I thought was nice. And I didn't realize that Sept-Îles would have an English side. And there are anglophones that live there, of course. And she's mentioned that there are 3 Cegeps in Quebec that offer that. And I was surprised that, because we're in Montreal, and where I live, there was Marie-Victorin that used to offer the English side, because it's a francophone Cegep, but they fused it out slowly, which is too bad. But, and a fun fact is that I don't consider myself an anglophone or a francophone. And my children, what are they? They're born here, but they go to French school, although we speak English. And her children too, they speak English, but they go to French school, so are they francophone, anglophone? I don't know. It's a good question. We are questioning.
Okay, it's my pleasure to introduce Jean Robert. He's from Quebec, and he's in education. He's a director. He worked with John Halpin, coincidentally, and he also worked with our new Dean, Gordon Brown. And his fun fact is that he sent an, I'm not going to say inappropriate text, but he sent a goodnight text to John Halpin by mistake. He thought he was texting his daughter, but he texted.
So John said he loved me too. I'm happy to introduce Belinda. Belinda's from John Abbott in the program in the web design, and I think there's another name too.
Graphic and web.
Graphic and web design. An interesting program. It's kind of interesting because they have to adapt the program to all. It must be unbelievable how rapid the changes are in that department. I think they've adjusted to that. They have a number of applicants in the program again, which means it's a healthy program and an interesting program. Interesting facts. Belinda wants to know some inside information on her dean, or the academic dean, but I won't. Fishing camp rules. I can't divulge anything. Belinda also is a softball player. Softball plays a softball league, so that's kind of interesting fact. And is from Timmins, Ontario. Is that good?
That's very good.
This is Doug Brown. He's the Dean of Technologies at John Abbott and a teacher.
He's here because we have to connect the French communities.
Go ahead. You remember?
At the school to the people from the area as well. He's from Alexandria, but has lived in Montreal and played hockey on the weekend with somebody from the Montreal Canadiens.
I wouldn't remember either.
The fun, I played with Guy Carbonneau, who happens to come from
From
Sept-Îles.
Sept-Îles.
And he told me,
He's
I
my
said,
age.
Mr.
Yeah,
Carbonneau,
I
to
knew him.
Lille, he said, born and raised. So
Yeah.
he was very proud of it. Another fun fact, by the way, is that I also sent a mistaken text to John Alvin. It was intended for Joanne. Luckily, I didn't say I love you. But I'll introduce Emma Judd, who is a third-year student in our business administration program from Charleville, Quebec, so the Pontiac and English-speaking area of Quebec. Why is she here? She's here because Laura asked her to come. It will look good on her CV. And she's from an English community and interested in the well-being of the community. A fun fact about this young woman is she just bought a house at 19 years old to open as a bed and breakfast when she graduates.
Well, everybody did an amazing job. You're making our next slide mostly obsolete. We'll go over it quickly. We want to know who's kind of hosting and presenting here today. So you've already met Doug Brown, who's the Dean of the Career Programs at John Abbott College. You haven't yet had a chance to meet me. My name is Sarah Manolson. I'm an independent consultant that's been working with Doug and with the other coordinators from John Abbott on designing, and I'll be, mostly facilitating, moderating today's workshop. It's been a real pleasure to be working with them over these last months and learning about what they do. And what I do is exactly this. I design and facilitate learning opportunities. So just quickly, if you're from John Abbott and you're presenting today, if you could stand up, because we've got the names up there, you've heard and met these people. We've got like a real wealth of knowledge and expertise here in the room that will be a little later doing presentations for you. So just to be clear, we've got Barbara, who's, thank you for being here, very last minute replacement for François for the Youth and Adult Correctional Intervention Program. We've got Paul from Police Technology Program along with his student, Melanie. We've got Gloria with nursing and Francine, dental hygiene, Martin with pre-hospital emergency care, Nabil with biopharmaceutical production technology, Laura, business admin, Belinda, graphic and web design, and Emma, as we heard, is a student in business admin. So these are the people that will be presenting to you today. You can have a seat again. Very quickly, what you can expect from the rest of this afternoon. We've already done our welcome. We've already done the introductions. We're now on agenda and learning goals. So after that, we're going to have a bit of a chance to share with each other about what the Cegep experience is. And if you didn't go through Cegep yourself, don't worry about it. There's still a relevant question for you. Doug's going to talk to us a little bit about John Abbott College, and then we're going to hear the presentations from the different coordinators. We're going to have some discussion on the themes that emerge from that, because there's themes around vitality that each of these presenters is speaking to, and then we're going to close in plenary. So some of the goals for today are increased understanding of the role of Cegeps in community vitality. I think it came up somewhere earlier, somewhere my brain can't hold the details anymore, but just how Cegeps are actually really a critical player in this, who are often actually overlooked or misunderstood. So an increased understanding of the value of like the 3-year Cegep, the technical and professional programs, an enhanced interest in these technical programs for the English-speaking community, and new partnerships and collaborations and knowledge exchange. I think already, even if we just walked out of the room right now, we all have some enhanced kind of knowledge and connections. There's probably people here that you already know you want to talk to. So that's really an explicit goal for us today. So for the most part, I think this should work. You were just paired with someone who for the most part is sitting next to you. So the next pairing, you're going to turn to the other person on the other side of you who you didn't already talk to. So, but before you do that, you're going to have a moment of silent reflection. And the question is, in what ways did my Cegep experience shape my sense of identity. Now, if you didn't attend Cegep, you can think about that same period of life. For your first few years of post-secondary, whether it was education, life, or work experience. But if you attended Cegep, you're really thinking about not just that phase of life, but the structure of Cegep and your educational experience. So as you're thinking about your sense of identity, you might wish to refer to later life direction in terms of education, employment, sense of community, all of that. Any questions about the question? So you'll have a minute to think about this quietly. I'll let you know when the minute is up. You'll turn to hopefully the new person on your other side and have a few minutes to share with each other.
You're not going to give back.
If I could have your attention. It's one of the most painful parts about being a facilitator is needing to stop people from talking when they're having really interesting conversations. But that is also part of what we need to do is keep moving forward. So maybe we can just hear from 3 or 4 people in terms of what you were just sharing, something that you said or something that you heard from your partner.
I would like to share with Lisa. She said she didn't like Cegep.
No, j'ai pas aimé ça.
And it didn't fulfill anything. Even though she had a desire to go in psychology, she hated it. But then when she went on to university, that propelled her into going to psychology. So she hated Cegep, loved university.
Well, I had fun at the parties.
Well,
this is actually really interesting.
No,
Lise, what was it about
seriously? No,
Cegep?
just
Yeah, what was it
seriously.
about Cegep that you didn't like?
She thought it was boring.
It was
Well,
a repeater of.
It was repetitive.
Yeah.
It's stuff you'd already learned.
Yeah, and I knew what I wanted to do later on, so I would have preferred to be in an environment that would be already setting me up
Sure.
where I want. Of course, I like to meet with people in the other fields than mine. You know,
Yeah.
comme dans le temps, là, il y avait l'électrotechnologie. It was huge at the time because we're talking 40 more years ago, of course. But other than that, or the nurses and becoming, it was interesting to have a conversation with those people. But in my own, moi je suis en sciences humaines.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the interesting thing about the tech departments, right, is because there is a real practical application aspect to it. Thank you for that. Yeah.
So it's funny because my experience is sort of the opposite.
But
Because I was doing the IB program, and we were a very small group, so most of my happy memories from Cegep are with the group, but not necessarily like the academic side of it. And I did not enjoy my first year of university. So that's really the opposite that happened to me. But to me, that was really that small group experience that I think you find in technical decks. So I saw that too in my pre-university program.
Sharon?
So Emma at high school, hated high school, got kicked out of high school. And then loved her Cegep experience because she didn't feel like it was being forced on her, because suddenly it was something she was choosing to do, and she had a couple of really passionate teachers who loved their subject that made her kind of just sort of the opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everyone's experience is obviously unique.
And she didn't have Cegep, huh?
So I'm that old that I lived in the era when they didn't have Cegep.
Okay. Was there another hand over here somewhere? I mistakenly saw that.
You saw my hand.
Oh,
but
yeah, Doug.
But, well, I was going to speak about Michael Murray's experience, who is also old enough not to have gone to Cegep. But he went to grade 12 at John Rennie. Before that, he'd gone to school in various places because his dad worked for CN. And the interesting thing about him going to John Rennie, it was at a time when he said the English-speaking community was getting very defensive, and it enhanced his alienation from French Quebec. He went away to university in Ontario, but came back because of family connections in the Eastern Townships. And I asked him if he still felt alienated from the French Quebec community. He said, au contraire, he's very well integrated in the Eastern Townships, and so it was family and friends who brought him back and allowed him to reintegrate. So that's it.
Thank you. That's very good. May I hasten to add that I do have a personal Cegep experience. I served for 8 years on the board of directors of Champlain College, 5 years as chairman. And my first year was very unhappy there too. Because of an independence movement on one of the campuses, but we...
This campus.
To name no names. We managed to get through that, and I do have some very fond memories of the people that I got to know at Champlain.
Great. Well, thank you. I know we're just touching upon it, but really what we're starting to do is turn our attention towards really thinking about that, whether it was positive or negative, how it impacted sense of identity, and some of the other factors that we're considering when we speak about community vitality. I'd like to invite you, Doug, to say a few words about John Abbott College. Yes, we're at that stage.
Okay.
Here we go.
Well, this will be news to all of you, or maybe some of the people from John Abbott have heard me say some bits of this, but prior to becoming Dean of Technologies about a year and a half ago, I had been an English teacher for 27 years, during which time I gave possibly 10 minutes thought to the technology programs. But when I became Dean of Technologies, I literally mean it took me like 5 minutes to see the value of those programs, and also to start appreciating the quality of the people who work in those departments. So it's been an incredible learning experience for me, and some of you people know that I've learned a lot through you. Barbara here, who I didn't know would be here today, she's taken me by the hand and walked me through Bordeaux Prison and the Federal Training Center in Laval, and that was a revelation, believe me. But I'll tell you what I would say. I'll just say these points. 3-year Cegep programs within the educational offer, that's the phrase they use to talk about the offer from kindergarten to 11, K to 12 elsewhere in North America and post-secondary, and the experience of students is actually quite a unique setup. If you think of elementary school, secondary school, Cegep, or elsewhere, community college or university, there are very few educational experiences that are as rich as the 3-year programs. In elementary school, students are there, the teachers are there, you usually have a teacher for 1 year, and you get to know all the kids in the school because the schools are small. So it is a very rich communal experience, and the teachers see the students grow. Same thing for high schools, unless students are moving around. The students are there, teachers get to know them. You might be on a sports coach as well as a history teacher, and so you do get to see students grow across that, but you typically only teach them once. When you get to Cegep, if you're in the pre-university side of things, it's only 2 years. If you teach history or math or English, you typically have a student a single time. If you're lucky, a student might return in another course and you see them. But in the 3-year programs, you see the students over a period of 3 years. The teachers all know each other, and they work closely together. They have to work closely in nursing. They team teach a lot of things, and they sometimes have students repeat over time more than once, and they follow them. So the intimacy, the closeness of the connection between the teachers and the students is really unique. You don't get anything like that again until you get to graduate school, because at the undergraduate level, typically what you have at university are the student experience is very intense. There's a kind of a generational identification that occurs, and it's a very transformative experience. But you typically have a professor maybe once, or if you really like the professor, you go and do another course with the professor. But it's nothing like that very close monitoring and interaction that can occur in the 3-year programs. So it's an incredibly rich experience, and stands out in the offer of all programs from kindergarten through graduate school. So the students know each other. Typically in a program you have one cohort of say 35 students, or in some programs you have 2 cohorts in these technical programs. So you have 35 students who get to know each other, work on problem sets, work on collaborate, or if you have a total of 70 students, it's still rather large and rather small, and they can set up Facebook accounts and help each other with work. In any case, there's a lot of collaborative work in these programs like engineering, technology, nursing, and so forth. So there's the cohesiveness of the cohort, and as I say, the closeness and continuity of the relationship with teachers. So that's one thing that strikes me about these programs. They're incredibly rich. Richer than 2-year community college programs in Ontario, because it is a 3-year program to have that longer period. So the other thing that struck me immediately when I looked at these programs, we have 12 technical programs running from computer science to information and library technology, graphic and web design, engineering technology, biopharma, business administration, nursing, dental hygiene, paramedical care, youth and adult correctional intervention, and then police technology. And in each one of those things, what struck me is how important these 3 words are.
control, mastery, and discipline. Those are words that people don't like to think about because we're into like, touchy-feely things. But if you're in a biopharma lab and there is something rotating at 3,000 RPMs, 3,000 rotations per minute that can take your fingers off, you have to learn how to use that piece of equipment. If you're a police technology student and your teachers know that in a few years you're going to be on the street with a weapon, with a license to use lethal force in some situations, you have to learn to control yourself. There's a level of discipline that these students have to learn. Same thing for paramedical care, for dental hygiene, for nursing. They have to master the protocols. Computer science is all about effectiveness of coding, elegance of coding, making sure things work and making sure you can communicate what you've done. So that's one thing that strikes me about them. They have to learn the technique. That's why they're called technology programs, or programme technique en français, because it's the technical dimension thing that stands out. So through that acquisition of control, mastery, and discipline, there is a definite acquisition of a métier. You can leave a program and you can go immediately into the workforce. You have something very useful that's frequently very aligned with the workforce. In computer science, they are begging for graduates. We have graduates who graduated recently, entry-level salary, $72,000. That's not bad after a 3-year program at John Abbott. That's a rare case, but there are such opportunities. Biopharma, they're trying to hire students before they graduate. And in all of the courses, you have something, younger people are going to have several employment situations through their career. That's what they're saying. But you can get a start in life in your early 20s and you can be a part-time librarian when you're 60 if you have the credential, or you can make it your entire career. So you get the métier, which is a useful thing, as well as the general education, which makes you very versatile and which equips you, if you want, to go to university in more or less any program other than the sciences where there are prerequisites. So it's a very useful sort of double education. Here's something that I don't know if the students have noticed. The teachers have really processed. But when I look at Richard Boris's definition of the components of community vitality, one of them is intergenerational relations. And that's emphasized a lot, by the way, in Indigenous education around the notion of elders. Well, a lot of the faculty in these programs have had careers as police officers, paramedics, dental hygienists, nurses, in business administration, people have had business careers in engineering technology. We've hired people who have had either spectacular or just very respectable careers, and they come in with a lot of knowledge. Typically in the pre-university side, we're hiring people who just finished graduate school. They go in, they're learning their métier as they go, they know their discipline. They have nothing like the life experience of the teachers. So there is a kind of intergenerational thing, which, as I say, is a component of community vitality. Here's something else that I won't say too much about, but these programs, because they attract English speakers, francophones who want to improve their English for professional purposes, and also draw a certain number of immigrants in nursing or in biopharma, dental hygiene, they have to collaborate. And you'll see among our faculty in these programs, they're very diverse. Racially and ethnically diverse in nursing, and the students are very diverse. And they have to work together. So you have francophones, anglophones, immigrants collaborating, working together. And so they're little microcosms of social integration in these programs. So enough time to finish?
Yep, you've got another couple minutes.
Okay, so now the other thing is that because you acquire a métier, and because it is a long and intense process, 3 years, there is a personal and professional identity formation that goes on, professional or vocational. Remember, these programs are referred to as program technique. We refer to them as career programs. People like dental hygienists and nursing faculty wish we could say professional programs, because there is a kind of order behind some of these things, an ordre professionnel. So there is a kind of vocational, professional identity that comes with these things, which is very meaningful in terms of their sense of themselves in the world. There's a community orientation that's especially true on the social justice and social service and health side of things, nursing, dental, paramedicine, youth and adult correctional, police, even business administration. They're very community-oriented organizations or programs, and that is built into what is taught to the students by the faculty. And it's one of the strategic goals, the strategic orientations at John Abbott is to enhance the holistic development of students through involvement in the community. That's one reason why we're here today, and one of the emphasis that our Director General in particular is putting forward very strongly, John Halpin. And then finally, very important for community vitality is employment, right? Your financial well-being. These programs give you access to employment, therefore enhance community vitality. One aspect of community vitality is relationships with the majority, integration into the society. So these programs give you a privileged access to employment and also open up further educational opportunities. That was fast. Was that okay?
It was great.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you, Judd,
Yes.
for giving kind of the broad overview. We're going to move in just a moment to hear more directly from the coordinators of these programs about what they're doing and some of the links to community vitality. So we're going to kind of go into a small amount of organized chaos here. So the way this is going to work is there's 3 different presentations that will be presented over a little less than a half hour. So you will have the option as a participant to go to 2 of those. So you'll go to one for the first 12 to 15 minutes, and then you'll go to another one after. So you can't go to all 3, but you'll choose the 2 that you want to go to. So presentation A, as we're calling it, for police tech and correctional intervention will be in sort of that corner of the room.
Well, they're already right there. Why don't we put, and there's their computers here.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize this was for them. Okay, I thought that was for Gloria's group.
That is what were you talking about?
I'm talking about police tech and correctional intervention. Okay, so police tech and correctional intervention will be in that corner of the room. The nursing, dental hygiene, and pre-hospital will be here. And then in that corner of the room, we'll have the biopharmaceutical, business admin, graphic, and web design. Now, the people from John Abbott have been very gracious about coming here, presenting. I am holding them to their presentations lasting a total of 12 minutes, which is, anyone who's ever done a presentation knows that that's really hard. So, but it's important for the flow that all the presentations end at the same time. So I will give the groups a 2-minute warning before your 12 minutes are up, but then everyone's going to end at the same time so that participants can rotate to the other presentation. And just to make sure that we're not all clustered around the first one, probably we're looking at, with the presenters and the participants, something like 7 to 8 people max in each group. Any questions about what we're doing? Okay, so go to it. So we're moving into the kind of last part of this workshop. The time has really flown by, actually. At least I felt that way. I felt that way. This is kind of like the harvesting section of the workshop. So now will be a chance. I would love to hear from the people who are taking notes in each group. What was it that you noted in terms of? It could be these aha moments, or new ideas, or next steps. But it's also, there might be outstanding questions that you have around some of what you've talked about. So let's see, in this group, I know, Emily, you were taking notes, so I'm gonna pick on you.
So, yeah, that was a great conversation. We touched on so many points. I'll try and summarize. So I think for us,
well, maybe you could just name the group that you were part of.
Yes, sorry. Yeah. So it was diversity and social integration, women and immigrants in particular. So we talked about this, going back to a previous conversation about the lack of confidence in French proficiency for those students to eventually get into the workforce. And we talked about how to integrate French into the curriculum, and there's already some of that. But then we talked about how socialization is key for that. So encouraging our students to go outside of the classroom, depending on their interests, depending on what they like to do. And so then they can come to go outside of the program, outside of the faculty as well, just to get that more daily French skills. And I think that we all agree that for us a big aha moment is that we all want our students to stay in Quebec. So we want them to be comfortable building a career, or doing research, doing their studies in Quebec, because we spend a lot of time with them, they're talented, we want to keep them. think you're going to have to write bigger because I can't.
Or writing block.
Yeah.
You want the document?
Yes, but that's a Sharpie and this board is a white eraser.
Maybe stay in red?
So you know what? These are the markers I have. But you know what? I'm more noting this, like, you can hear what's being said. It's okay if you don't read it.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to do anything with this.
Okay,
This is more just kind of Doug and I. Yeah. But thank you for letting me know. I know green is hard to read. I can move the board. You can move. You can come sit closer to the board. Picture of the board.
No, I didn't know.
So yeah, go on, Emily.
And so we also discussed about the Centre collégial de transfert de technologie and research as a tool for integration. So for graduates who want research again in Quebec. And also that we should consider equity measures to make sure that women and immigrants feel that they have space to continue their career. Finally, I think we also discussed the idea of peer mentoring with diversity and intergenerational groups. And finally, we continued on with the thinking about the workplace training that is done already in professional programs. And so to adapt that as sort of the social codes training, so that is something that might not necessarily be known for people from other cultures where people will be immigrating to Quebec. And so professional behavior, the soft skills that are necessary to succeed. And was there anything else?
You did great.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, very interesting. Are you left with any outstanding questions?
I think lots, but we'll just come.
Just keep on. Yeah.
I think perhaps if you don't mind, and would be adding, I think probably the biggest question is how can we find other ways of fostering retention? I think that's the big thing. You know,
Yeah.
like we talked about lack of confidence in French. We talked about developing social networks because we felt that was key for people to stay wherever they are. And so I guess that's probably an open question that we had, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Let's hear from the group that was over there. Was someone taking notes there?
No.
Okay.
So we're looking at each other like we're supposed to take notes.
Discussion.
Yeah, we're going to rely on your collective memory.
Yeah, that's not very good these days.
Personally, I was taken aback to see when we talked about retention rates in Sept-Îles there. It was surprisingly high. In our days where all our students want to go, you know, they watch TV, Netflix, and they all want to go where the action is, they want to go where in the big cities, and was really surprised to see how many people actually stay in their community, like Sharon, right?
Yes.
Sharon was telling us, I had to go to the hospital at one point, and it was my students that actually treated me, so they actually came back to their community, which I think is a big victory, a big local victory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at a possibility, which we found out was very expensive, so Doug, you can get up with some money. Looking at going to these outlying regions to attract students, because we know that we have a retention problem as well, especially with our immigrant students. They don't feel a sense of belonging, and they tend to finish the program and then move out of Quebec. So we want to sort of attract students that we know would go back to their area and then perhaps redundant nursing. Because you're department.
Sure.
Yeah. So the Sept-Îles was one place, so I was trying to target, see what areas I could actually, we could, as a group, not only nursing, but maybe the technologies could go and promote our programs. Presently, I think for all our programs, we have no issue in attracting students. That's clear, at all. We do obviously take a lot of students from the West Island, but now we were talking about maybe opening it up, possibility of reserving some spots for students, Indigenous students, students outside of the Montreal region. But then again, that's a discussion with admissions, so I'm not sure where we go with that. We were thrilled to find out that we shared similar issues. And what else did we talk about?
Well, we talked a little about one of the realities with our immigrant population is that we can offer them all the support and the education and so on. But when it comes to working, we are still in a situation where there's still many prejudices in Quebec, and to send some of our immigrants in the hospitals, some of the patients find that difficult to receive care from someone that for them is another staff member from another country or whatever. So we still have that, although we don't like to talk about it, it's still present. And in some of our senior residences, it's very present. They just don't know how to react. So there's a lot of work to be done, whether it's with the staff that's already there, they're seeing this new population coming in, and the patients who are not used to this new population caring for them. So they're above and beyond what's done in the schools and the Cegeps. There is another reality in the workforce that complicates it.
Then I mentioned the possibility, this week we found out we got some funding for French enhancement, so looking at a model of perhaps sending a French student or some sort of mentor into the actual hospital. It's one thing to have the courses at the college, but where they really struggle is when they're actually on site needing to communicate with a patient, with a nurse. So we're looking at as a possible model for students who don't feel very comfortable in French, because I think Joanne gave a presentation yesterday in regards to the confidence levels of our students speaking. We think that might be one solution.
We have, just off topic a little, but we have a program with Vanier College at McGill where our students in nursing, the students in nursing at Vanier will be working with the students in nursing at Saint-Laurent, which is basically in the same building just about, and they'll be twinning these students to work on the hospital. So again, with the idea of helping each other, the francophone helping the anglophone,
And actually, one more thing, sorry. One thing that was very helpful, I was speaking, I'm sorry. Emma, sorry. We were talking about some of our struggles when we're trying to reach out perhaps to the French communities and why we were having some difficulties. And we both actually were comparing some of the challenges we've had. And what the conclusion we came up with is that when you can come and you can offer and explain to them what you can offer them, they seem to be obviously a lot more receptive. So I was speaking about the simulation project that Doug mentioned in the first workshop, the presentation. The approach that we took in terms of having them embrace our ideas and appreciate the experience that we have, and therefore this led to us having them combine the French Cegep and the English Cegep nurses and working into the simulation, where there was zero interest at the beginning. We really wanted to keep it apart. So.
That's great, thank you. We're going to move along, because we have just a few minutes left. The group that was in that corner, which was, I forget, what?
Laura.
Yes, yes.
No one took notes either. We kind of jumped right to the overall view of things, and we started to talk about what, envision our ideas for the future, and we heard a lot from you. And so it was basically just an overall conversation about what we would envision and maybe some things we would like to change. We talked a little bit about the new government in Quebec and possible things that might be coming down the pipe with that.
Sure. As we're speaking, it's funny, I just started thinking about something else that really wasn't discussed, but it was mentioned earlier that I was born in Italy and I have dual citizenship, and I get like so many correspondence, when it's time to vote for the Italian government, so is there a way to track students such as Emma from the school and say, okay, I know you're at John Abbott, we have some jobs here, remind you that these are some available with your program, some way of tracking. Like every second day I get a letter from the Italian consulate that I have to go vote, not that I care, to be quite honest, But I'm just saying, is there a way to track students that have come to Montreal to study, especially from the regions, and so that the companies there can say, hey, we have an offer. Because I mean, I'm not from the regions, and I hear the students, they want to go back to the regions, and I'd like to make connections with the employers out there. But like, what, I get in my car and I start driving, I look at Lubaniad, I don't know. Right?
Yeah. And I'd like to comment on the other group's aha moment. It's like, as a teacher, as a person, I don't want to restrict you to just one place.
Right.
I would like you to go and experience the world and then, you know, come back and live your life and be happy. And Quebec is obviously a great place to do that.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was my...
Well, I would imagine, I mean, just to nuance this, of course, I don't think anyone's saying like, we want to force people to stay, but
Right.
we want to provide the conditions such that students who would like to stay and work here are able to.
Exactly. I think that ties in with what Laura's talking about, a way to entice them back or give them another reason related to where they started to come back. And I think that kind of happens organically too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Let's hear from this group.
So our group is Diversity, Authority, and Recruitment in Policing and Corrections. So there are a couple of aha moments that I'll intersperse as we go through it. We're talking about diversity. There are all kinds of diversity. So one thing that Paul spoke about is the need for police forces to be much more proactive and more genuinely interested in attracting a diverse officer corps, including Anglophones and visible minorities. Paul thinks they have no real sincere desire to do that, otherwise they would do it better. And he has various suggestions about how they might do that, including sending representatives from the force who are visible minority or Anglophone, including making the written test to become an SPVM officer more reasonable rather than a very, very strict French test. We spoke about, well, Paul's line was that they're always hiding behind Law 101. It says the police force needs to reflect not just the diversity of the population, but an urban population, because many police officers do not come from an urban area. Now, a couple of things. We talked about cultural communities being attracted into the police force, and there are some biases within those communities against being a police officer that are similar to what Sebastian pointed out about English-speaking populations in Quebec tend to have a bias against vocational training. Don't become a plumber, you have to go to university, despite the fact that many of those that vocational track will take you to prosperity and a good life. So there's a similar bias sometimes in cultural communities about becoming a police officer. So that's something that needs to be overcome. Here's an aha moment. One of the barriers to recruitment, in particular from the Black community, is the level of skills in swimming. Apparently, the level of the number of students, young people from the Black community who learn how to swim is lower than in the white community. So, and that can be a barrier. So there have been suggestions that maybe that should be taken away as a criteria. On the other hand, it's a necessary thing. So there are various things that are sort of not obvious that lead to exclusions, but a lot of proactive work has to be done. Another thing we spoke about was diversity in gender diversity in corrections, including in prisons, where it's an interesting fact that a workforce within a prison that is both male and female is more effective with male inmates than one that is strictly male, because sometimes testosterone levels between men lead to conflict quite easily, whereas if it's a woman guard interacting with a prisoner, that just doesn't happen. So there are advantages to different kinds of diversity. Barbara spoke about the history of various sensitization campaigns and wondered why they are not being carried on, including sensitization to Jewish communities, Hindu communities, and so on. And one thing that was an aha moment for me that I didn't know. Police technology has 5 or 6 gay and lesbian teachers that I didn't know. So that community is very well represented within the police tech teaching staff at our college. And that's another thing about tech programs in general. Nursing is maybe the poster child for this. In terms of diversity, they are the most diverse racially and ethnically in our teaching staff, because you have all kinds of people who go into nursing and they have to serve a very diverse population. But in Paul's case, we have the gay and lesbian community being represented, but no visible minorities. The one visible minority teacher who was there had to stop teaching because he or she was promoted to commander or something and couldn't balance the teaching. So have I missed anything?
that's it, reflecting the community proactiveness on the part of police forces, and also cultural communities need to change some attitudes around vocational training, becoming a police officer, swimming, things like that. Is that, it's an interesting little fact. Did I miss anything?
No.
No, that was good.
That's it.
Okay, great.
Well done.
Well, thank you, everybody, for engaging and participating so fully. We didn't talk about next steps and new contacts, but I hope that you've had a chance to think about that. There may be some people in the room that you've already exchanged information with, or that you can do so now as we wrap up. So this is the end of the workshop. Again, I'd like to have a big round of applause for all of our people.